Okay, Tuesday, August 30th. This is a pre-open SPY video. We are coming into 2 days to go in the month. You can see here on the daily chart, we had our little kind of momentum shooter bar. So we were sort of looking for continuation lower coming to the day. You can see here in a second, I'll show you these two lines represent the high and low of the pre-market activity. So I'll explain what that means. And this blue line here kind of represents the midpoint of the prior week. So at that point, anything holding below there, we still are biased down for this week, but we'll have to see where price action leads us at the open relative to these pre-market levels. In terms of the month, with 2 days to go, we are kind of still very close. It looks like as the month comes to an end, to a shooter bar here, which means if we kind of hold this kind of a look next 2 days, then we should expect follow through lower. And then if we get that into September, we'll have to see if we come all the way down to the bottom of that range, that green bar, which is inside, it's kind of a range bar, which we failed to break out on the upside in August. So we might be heading down to the downside of it. Not necessarily, a major collapse, but it's a range at the moment. And that's what that bar is showing you might be happening in September, kind of moving lower to the bottom of that range. But anyway, get more towards today. I remember seeing this kind of pattern last week, and I'll just show you that again in a second. But this was, we had a gap up today. A gap up overnight, but then we're selling off coming into the open. We have about 20 minutes to go before we open. So now, at the moment, let's assume this becomes the high and low. We can see here that if we let's say we hold this area and start up, with a green bar near the bottom of this range. At that point, we just look for the top of the range to be the target, and we'll see if we break out of this overall sideways pattern that's forming. Of course, if we start down below this area, then that's a downward move, and we'll look for that continuate. We'll be below the midpoint of yesterday, heading lower. So kind of the low end of the range is the midpoint of yesterday. That's why it's kind of, if we move up, we still have an overall down bias on both the weekly chart and even on, on the daily chart a little bit. So, the overnight action, given that the target would just be up here, it doesn't necessarily mean, the strong open means we're going to be rallying strongly. It means we might reach the top of this range, and then you have to see if you get a breakout or not. So that's what we're going to see. I recall, again, this type of action last week when we had the down move to start in the two pause days. And if I look at here, I think it was August 24th. Let's just go back on the 15-minute chart. Yeah, it was this kind of move here where it was one of these days, I kind of forgot, but we opened kind of lower and we had the up start to the day, and we were, had overnight action that I think was up here near yesterday's highs. So it was just a trade for the morning. There were a lot of decent long trades, but it only took you to, the high of that pre-market range, and then we kind of settled in. We had the fake out up day. It was a good buy day actually, but it didn't, it immediately had a failure day on Friday, the Friday after. So this Thursday was a buy day above the midpoint, moved up. It was really a nice day to trade long, but overall, while you might have expected higher the day after, we got an immediate failure at the open, came to the halfway point, and that's why we had the big red bar. So anyway, getting back to the 15-minute chart, keep an eye on these two levels. If we do get a buy, then just expect it to maybe head up to the top of the range, then watch for monitor or not. Or then monitor for breakout or not. If we start lower, well, then that's in line with this bar kind of starting down on the day, and the pre-market action just failed completely. But usually when you gap up like this, a lot of stocks are gapping up, even though they're falling off a little bit to the open. So it's not going to be necessarily the weakest. I guess the ideal trade to me would be some kind of an up move early that fails, and then you get the rollover to the downside, and then you want to see if you break through that intraday low, take out the midpoint of the pre-market low, take out the midpoint, and then head towards yesterday's lows. And in the end, if we start down in some form, then we go back to the fact that we're looking at the next targets. There's three of them here. This day, and then the weekly low, which is down here. So on the 2 down week, if everything really gets weak, either today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we are heading down to that pivot low here, which equates to the third this third daily target here in a row. So that's if we get weakness, but we'll have to just see how everything opens, and can monitor this, the range of the high and low, and kind of know your expectations depending on what kind of opening you get, what some of the targets may be. So we'll see what happens. Still biased to the downside, but might be a little tricky, choppy kind of day again today. We'll just have to see.